What's up, everybody? Chris Pinnell here. We're going over buy low candidates for week 10 of the fantasy football season. If you do enjoy, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's dive right into it. And the number one guy that I am looking to buy low on before he returns in week 10 action, it's David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. We saw his role in this offense prior to getting injured, and David Montgomery owners right now are probably shaking in their boots a bit after seeing Jahmyr Gibbs explode the previous week in prime time before the bye week last week. Then we also saw a pretty solid performance versus the Baltimore Ravens as well. So if you're a David Montgomery owner, you have not had action in about a month now. And there's a reason the Lions drafted Gibbs so high. They want to use him. They know he's a great player, and I totally agree with that. But I don't think Dan Campbell is going to continue having him get the lion's share of the workload. Now, he did say it's going to be a bit of a split. He's growing. He has his own role in this offense now. But David Montgomery is the guy that they trust just to be a bruising back. And if you're going to get a lot of touches in this offense that tends to have really high implied team totals every single week and cakewalk matchups the rest of the season nearly, it's going to be hard not to like David Montgomery, especially if he's going to be the goal line back. So if we're looking at his games this year, week 1 versus Kansas City, 21 carries in that game, 16 carries versus Seattle, did not play versus Atlanta, then 32 carries versus Green Bay, and that's after an injury on a Thursday night. And then 19 carries versus Carolina, then got hurt in week 6 versus Tampa. So that could be a selling point if people aren't paying attention and think he played the entire game there. But on the season, just around 19 carries per game, 1.2 rushing touchdowns, 80 yards per game on the ground, over 4 yards per carry. Not really involved much in the passing game, which is fine. It hurts a little bit on PPR scoring leagues, obviously, because Jahmyr Gibbs has that role carved out. But I mean, there's plenty of touchdown equity, and this is a great offense. And like I mentioned with the matchups, it's almost like a dream scenario here for the Detroit Lions. Like, I'm not really seeing a game that they're not going to be favored in. Maybe Dallas week 17, but other than that, I would assume the Lions will be the favorites. So it should be positive game scripts here for David Montgomery just to pound the rock. So we get week 10 versus the Chargers. I don't know what the line is yet, but that should be very close. I would probably lean the Lions in that game with how bad the Chargers defense has been. But then we get Chicago in week 11, Green Bay in week 12. The Saints are a bit tougher versus the run in week 13, but they should still be favored in that game. Then we get Chicago again. Then we get Denver. We know how bad they are versus the run. Then we have Minnesota in week 16 and in week 18. And then Dallas is a bit tougher over in week 17. But that is a dream scenario matchup here for David Montgomery. So if we can buy low on him now before he returns to action week 10 and probably scores another touchdown and gets 15 plus carries and he gets his value back, now is the time to do it. And number 2 here, we have Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. And I know you probably see him in every single buy low video there is or article. And it's just because he's the perfect recipe for a buy low. Now, the issue with Tony Pollard is that he's not been as efficient as he has been in the past, but he's still getting enough volume in an offense that can put up points to where he should be fantasy relevant. And we know the talent is there. And with his role, he gets passing game involvement. But we have 3 good matchups in a row of Tony Pollard. And if he can't get it going here, I just don't really know what to say. Had a tougher matchup versus Philly. They've been really stout versus the run. Still 12 carries, 51 yards. And his usage overall this season has been pretty good. Nearly 20 total opportunities every single week, 15 carries, and right around 4 targets, a 13% target share. And when Dak's on his game, this offense came with the ball and presents scoring opportunities, and he is the main back here dominating the snap share. We haven't seen the snap share below 60% besides one game this year when it was an absolute blowout versus the New England Patriots. Besides that, he is dominating the touches. And we have great matchups the next month now. We have the New York Giants, which they suck versus the run. The Carolina Panthers are one of the absolute worst defenses in the league, especially versus running backs. Then we get the Washington Commanders, who we know how bad they've been so far this year. Then you get Seattle. Unfortunately, Philly again. Buffalo hasn't been too great versus the run. Miami, Detroit. But overall, the next month looks really good for Tony Pollard. And this is a really good buy low spot. If you can turn him around for like an RB2 and like a middling wide receiver, do a 2-for-1 deal on that, I would love to get Pollard on my team for the next few weeks. And number 3 for me is T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. And unfortunately, he had a pretty good game on Sunday Night Football. I guess thankfully for us, he did not find the end zone, so it wasn't an absolute explosion game from T. Higgins. So I still think there's a buy low opportunity because keep in mind, this is only his second good game of the year. We saw versus Baltimore where we put up 29 points in that one in week 2. And then obviously last night, 22 points versus the Buffalo Bills. But besides that, 11 points. A bye week, 4 points. He was hurt. 3 points, 4 points, 0 points versus Cleveland. There's still a sour taste in your mouth if you've owned T. Higgins. I personally have owned T. Higgins. People are sending me trades for him, and I have been declining them because I'm a believer in his talent, and he has a great role in this offense. If you're looking at his overall numbers on the season, volume-wise, 7 targets per game heading into last week. That'll be a little bit higher once my stats update because he did receive 9 targets. Right around a 20% target share, 35% market share of the team's air yards. And when Joe Burrow's on his game, which he's been looking a lot better recently, that just completely elevates this offense because you know Joe Burrow, one of the absolute best out there. Jamar Chase, an elite level wide receiver, he takes attention away from T. Higgins. But T. Higgins was also a really high draft pick, nearly a first round pick, and he has all the talent in the world as well. And we have seen some really big games in the past from T. Higgins, so the volume is going to be there. It's really hard not to like him in these future matchups that we have for the rest of the season. And one also little tidbit here is that he does not have a bye week, and some people overlook that. In one of my leagues, I have two. I had Stephon Diggs, and I needed a tight end, so I tried to get Dalton Kincaid as well. I traded away Stephon Diggs. Now, this is not the entire trade, but I got back Jamar Chase, and Stephon Diggs still has a bye week. So I pretty much gained a week getting Jamar Chase, and I have them pretty much a similar value. I think I'd prefer Stephon Diggs a little bit more, but to get Kincaid, which I felt really confident in him to end the season, I love it. I know Dawson Knox will be back at some point, but Kincaid's such a stud out there. We've seen it with Knox being out. But T. Higgins, I mean, you don't have a bye week, so you're pretty much gaining a week there if you can kind of pull that off and someone's not paying attention. We get a matchup versus Houston next week, which I'd like. Baltimore's a little bit tougher, but he scored nearly 30 fantasy points versus them earlier in the season. Then Pittsburgh, really soft secondary. Jacksonville the same way. Indianapolis, trash in the secondary. Minnesota the same way. Then Pittsburgh again. Does draw Cleveland week 18, but hopefully you don't have your championship week 18 anyway. You should be done by then, so there's really not too much to worry about. If Joe Burrow's going to be playing well, I want T. Higgins on the low, because a lot of people that own T. Higgins probably finally see a decent game here, are going to try to offload him from the inconsistency that they've seen so far this year. But I'm a buyer in the talent, and I want to buy low on him this week again before the window closes. So with that being said, that's all I got for today's video. So just to recap, number 1, David Montgomery. Number 2, Tony Pollard. And number 3, T. Higgins. So if you did enjoy today's video, or even if you didn't, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are brand new. If you have any questions about your own teams, I'd be more than happy to help you out, whether it's start-sit decisions, trade decisions, or anything about your league. I'll be more than happy to help you out. So leave those questions down below, and I will get right back to you because I answer every single question that I get. But I think that's all I have for you, so I wish you all the best of luck on your waivers heading into Tuesday night. I'll see you guys in the next one.